Hello everybody, Reggie Tam here, and we're continuing with my series of reviewing YouTube subscribers, Facebook group members, video submissions to me. Today we're reviewing Shaun's video. He sent me of a 10 fast forward session. He warned me that the plane isn't great in advance. I'm sure that won't all be true, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Before we get going, I would like to urge any of you who aren't already members of the Facebook group, who are on Facebook, to please do come along and join the group, as long as you're not going to be somebody who's going to come along and join it and post in like a negative, typical 2+2 Reddit type way. It's very much a group just of people who want to enjoy poker at the micro stakes, not get super like aggressive with the way they talk with each other and respect each other's opinions, even if you vehemently disagree. So yeah, if you think you fit that bill and you're not yet a Facebook group member, please do come and join. And I also want to say that my coaching is back open for business on a small scale. I am looking for just 2 or 3 people to work with over the coming weeks and months. So if you like what you've seen in my previous videos and this video, and you'd like to do the similar kind of work with me but in a one-to-one basis rather than watching someone's videos and just trying to kind of see how that relates to you, please do get in touch. You can contact me via lots of different methods that are all listed beneath the video. So without further ado, let's get into Shaun's video. We do have HUD stats. It's not explained to me why this is going too fast. This is going just a bit too fast. Slower. Let's go a bit slower. So we're going to have 2 hands going on at once here, I guess. I guess we'll tackle the Ace King first, because that's likely to be the one most guys are more interested in. We face a middle position small open from somebody currently looks like 20/16 over. Now, pointless sample size. I think we need to be 3-betting here. I think a lot of mistakes people make here will see this small sizing and they'll 3-bet to 7 or 8 big blinds at the most. My default here would be to go to at least $1, maybe $1.10. We want to be giving people not unreasonable prices. We don't want to be giving people good prices to defend versus what's likely to be a pretty narrow and fairly transparent range from us here. It's not like we're going to have too many bluffs in our big blind 3-betting range versus this sizing for middle position. So we kind of make it 7 or 8x. We kind of tell people we're mostly in decent pocket pair and 2 high card territory, and it can make life quite difficult because they get quite an easy call for, say, if we just make it 80 here, they get a call for like less than 6 blinds and get to play a pot in position against what is likely to be a pretty transparent range. I'd rather make it a little bit bigger if we're going to turn our hand almost face up pre-flop as being like very high card orientated. Then we want people to have to pay a premium to play us post up in position with that kind of information. Let's see what size Shaun makes it. Yeah, way too small here. I mean, he's just going to defend, or he should defend, literally his entire middle position opening range versus this sizing. And we're going to find ourselves in lots of difficult positions post up when we improve and when we don't improve. When we do improve, it's going to be like pretty hard to get good value from all but the kind of stuff that when he shares cards with us, say he's defended King Queen, it comes King High, or he's defended Ace Queen, it comes Ace High. But we're going to find it difficult to get too much value. When we miss, we're going to find it difficult to negotiate our way to showdown or to bluff very effectively. Yeah, we just need to be charging a lot more than this, Shaun. We'll go back and look at the Jack 10 in a moment because it looks like we've flopped something interesting over there too. Anyway, wow, someone just folded for 4 blinds more. Not really what I'd be doing, but there you go. So we've made a C-bet here with the Jack 10. I like it. Not sure I'm mega fond of the sizing. If we get raised here, it's going to put us in a tricky spot. What do I think? What would I size to you? We definitely need to bet. I think 45 is too big. Feels more like it's a 30 cent sort of bet to me. If we get raised, we can try and call and maybe try and call down on safe runouts. If we bet 30 and he raised to say 80, we've got a chance of maybe seeing next card and what have you, and maybe seeing all the way to the river. Whereas we make it 45, he then makes it say 120. All of a sudden, it starts to get really pricey because then his turn barrel's going to be much bigger if he continues barreling. It just gets kind of messy. I wouldn't have this sizing on this board texture with any of my range, I don't think. So yeah, I think I would go slightly smaller here. And that's clearly a dreadful turn. We should just be checking here. And looking just to try and show our hand down. Hopefully we win against pocket 8, so I don't know what. I don't really know what, but I think we should definitely be checking here. And we decide to bet again. And we fill up on the end, which is nice. So given that I think we should have checked the turn, but he's bet called again, I think he can have like decent number of straights in his range. Some flushes, I guess, but probably not too many. But I think given he's called the turn, I think we can put him on a minimum of a straight. So I think we should go for a decent sized river value bet here. Just target ace X. I'd be looking to go about 180, something like that, 180 to $2, just to put ace X in like a real tough spot. $240 seems ambitious to me, but we'll see. And we get the fold. What to do with the 9s here? For me, it's a very easy call. Set mine, try and flop a set in a multi-way pot. We do have a potential fish here with his stack size, but he doesn't have super loose stats. 25-4 over, again, a ridiculously small sample. Another potential fish here. Don't know anything about him. So we could make an argument for squeezing, I guess, but I think I prefer just calling and trying to hit a home run post flop. Sadly, when we don't make our set and the ball comes ace high multi-way, we're just going to be forced to hit that check and fold button. Shaun was clearly considering doing something with the 6-5 then, but I think wisely decided against it. So next time we're going to be involved in is these pocket 10s. We've been 3-bet here. Let's see what Shaun decides to do. Looks like he's maybe weighing up a 4-bet, unless it's just his software like automatically taking him to that. I think the problem with 4-betting here is we're starting off pretty deep. If we get 5-bet, it's gross. We're probably going to need to like 4-bet fold 10s, which seems this deep. Seems horrible to me. If we're going to be 4-bet folding, I think we can choose much better hands to do that with in these situations. Hands like ace X suited with like wheel side cards. Some weak suited king X that we can't call with. Those types of hands are going to make much better like 4-bet folds. I think if we're planning on 4-betting this getting it in. I think it's going to be way too loose. 4-bet folding it seems like a waste of our hand. I think it's just a really easy call here. And then play a pot relatively deep in position post-flop with a hand that's doing okay against this player's range, and we're going to know where we're at on a lot of boards. Or we're going to have a good idea of where we're at on a lot of boards. So I hope Shaun doesn't go for the 4-bet here. Looks like he is though. So we get the call, which isn't the worst thing. Although we can't rule out at this point in this player having some slow play like aces, kings, and what have you in his range. Players doing that more and more these days, probably as they should. So what do we do on this flop? We've made a 4-bet. We've been called. So we're ahead of ace, queen, ace, king that doesn't want to put it in. We're still ahead of stuff like king, queen suited. We're behind to some stuff that maybe defends like ace, jack suited. Still behind to pocket queens. All in all, it's not the worst flop for our hand, but I don't think we should be betting this flop. I think we should be checking and like trying to keep the pot. I mean, it's already quite big. It's already 46 blinds, but let's just let this pot get like completely out of control on us. Shaun's going for the bet, and I'm not really sure what Shaun's hoping to achieve with this bet and this sizing. I mean, I'm presuming he's playing for folds. But folds from what? I mean, we're only getting folds from hands that are beating us. We're getting folds from some hands that will have equity against us, of course. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's quite nice if we get ace queen to fold here, or like king queen, things like that. But we don't need to bet that big if that's our goal here, is just to like fold out overcards. We don't. This isn't a size we need to use. I mean, if we're just trying to fold out overcards, we could bet as little as like 160, 170 here and probably get that job done, unless you had some like other backdoor equity going on with, I don't know, backdoor flush draws or something like that. So I don't like the bet. I don't like the fact we've chosen to bet. I really don't like the sizing. And if we get raised here, we'll have just ended up torching 50 blinds in a spot where we just didn't need to. I think this is like a situation I see lots of people getting themselves into, where the pot is just getting way too big for their hand. They've tried to be a little bit too aggressive in the early stages, either trying to make people fold or trying to get thin value or whatever. And then they end up in lots of these like situations where if you just call here, we're going to be in a 100 big blind pot with an underpair and still like 90 blinds behind to play for. So it's going to create some pretty shitty spots for us, and not very many good ones unless we spike a 10 on the turn. But we get the fold, and I think there's a problem there. Is like Shaun gets to fold, and he's probably quite happy with the outcome, and that's not going to be a hand that is likely to go back and review because he's won it, and people tend not to review too many of the hands he've won. But I think Shaun made a couple of mistakes in that hand. One pre-flop with the 4-bet, given how deep we were, and then one post-flop, A, by betting, and B, with his sizing. And that'll be the kind of mistake that maybe Shaun's making, that he's not necessarily realising he's making or going back and reviewing, because he's won the hand. And let's face it, most of us, when we have a poker session, we'll go back and just look at the big pots. Most of the big pots we've lost, and then try and kick ourselves up the arse for being result orientated with the way we played the hand or what have you, and not notice the pots we've won where we didn't necessarily play too well. And I think that would be one of them. We have 2 10s here versus a middle position open. Let's see what Shaun does. Yeah, again, it's 3-bet Shaun. It's absurdly small, mate. We're not playing a tournament here. You know, we're sitting 120 big blinds deep. We're I mean, in tournaments when the starting stack say 30 blinds or whatever, then these sizes probably become appropriate. I wouldn't know. I'm not a tournament player, but it seems like it's the sort of size you'd want to make when you are quite relatively shallow stacked, not when you're this deep. Um, yeah, I mean, if we're going to be three betting here, I'd be looking to make it at least 90, maybe $1, $1.05. Again, well, not again, 'cause I haven't mentioned it in this video, but just taking pots down pre, avoiding paying rake in situations where, we likely have the best hand, but maybe equity wise, we're not in, we're in okay shape, but nothing more than that, versus his range. So yeah, I think I'm already starting to see some pretty big sizing problems in Shaun's game, and maybe like the hands he's choosing to three bet and four bet with. Maybe he's been a little bit too aggressive with medium strength hands, and without talking to Shaun, it's hard to know the reasons for that. I don't know if he's doing this to try and like get value pre-flop, or if he's doing it to try and protect his hand, to try and generate some folds. I don't know. People have different reasons for three betting, different motives for doing it. But whichever way, whatever his motive is here, this sizing is just way too small. Opens ourselves up to all kinds of like four bets, given it's going to be a relatively cheap four bet bluff here for this guy, given how small we've made it. And it just doesn't charge enough when he does have like pocket sevens, eights, nines, twos, threes, all those types of things. We don't get enough value for it. And if he does have a hand that has good equity against us, we're not charging him enough to realise his equity. So yeah, this sizing's, I don't like saying it, Shaun, but it's really quite bad. And it's something you absolutely need to work on. We do get face to four bet. So at this point, it's very likely we're in relatively rough shape here, either like a long way behind or kind of in a flip situation. But we're going to be in a flip situation where we call and we don't have the initiative, and we're going to hit most boards. If it comes down to 8 high and he bombs, do we really love our tens in a 4-bet pot versus under the gun? If it comes down any overcards and he bets small, we're going to love it. There's just not a lot of situations we're going to love here post flop other than spiking a 10. I think if we'd have made this 90 and he'd made this like 260, 270, we'd have a pretty easy fold. But given that we made our bet so small, maybe it's inducing him to play parts of his range a little bit more aggressive than maybe usually would. Who knows? This is the problem with these small bet sizes. We don't know how our opponents are going to respond to them as well, and when they do respond to them, we can't be as certain of what it means. So yeah, this problem is entirely of the decision to A, 3-bet this type of hand versus under the gun, and B, use such a small sizing. It looks like Shaun's probably going to find the call, but we'll see. And we just find the fold. So again, we just torched like a lot of equity there. We've gone for a really small 3-bet pre-flop, and we've definitely torched some equity. Who knows how much equity? But yeah, we need to, when we're making these like post-flop or any decisions, we need to understand like how we're going to respond versus certain things, and understand like what our sizing, that the effect that has on how our opponents are going to play. It looks like Shaun's at the moment just seeing hands as like, right, I have two tens is pretty good, I'm just going to keep raising for now. Oh fuck, I've been re-raised, now what, kind of thing. He's not seeing the bigger picture. It's like when you're playing pool or playing snooker or something, the best players are thinking like 5, 6, whatever many shots ahead. In poker, you always want to be thinking 1 or 2 moves ahead. How am I going to respond if this happens? How am I going to respond if that happens? If I do this, what are the options that my opponent may or may not take, and how am I going to respond to them? It looks like Shaun isn't having those thought processes, and he's just thinking literally one like action at a time. Like, right, I have 2 tens, under the guns raised, I am going to 3-bet, and then not considering the ramifications of like what might happen after he makes his 3-bet and how he's going to respond to them. So yeah, 3-bet to like 5.5 blinds and fold into a relatively small 4-bet with pocket tens just seems like a real butcher to me. And I'm really sorry, Shaun. I hate to say things like that, but yeah, we've had two examples of pocket tens. You've won one and you've lost one, and it doesn't feel to me like you played either of them, particularly well, and certainly not at the level of the opposition that you're likely to be up against in these games. So again, Shaun's going with a 3-bet with Jack Queen suited. So clearly, Shaun's got a depolarized range when he's 3-betting, which in these games I don't think is too bad. I think when you don't have a sample on anyone, depolarized is probably the best way to go. When we do start getting sample sizes on people, then we should be switching between polarized and depolarized depending on how we think they respond to 3-bets. But again, it's big issue with sizing here. We open ourselves up to a 4-bet with a hand that's, very playable, which is a disaster. And we don't necessarily gain that much fold equity. Who knows? Maybe people have just folded into these bet sizes a lot in these games. I haven't played 10 and L fast forward for a long time. Maybe this size is like really effective for getting folds. Doesn't feel like it should be, but maybe it is. Who knows? We get the call. We get a reasonable flop. We flop a good shot. Like a decent card we can represent. Definitely a board we should be c-betting here. We don't expect us to get raised too often. If we c-bet, I think we can probably get away with making it something like 80 here, something like that. And then just obviously crossing our fingers, hoping that Banks 202 folds. If he doesn't, probably looking to give up on a lot of turns. Obviously on a 10 we're going to continue betting. On a Jack and a Queen we consider check calling a street. Any other card outside maybe of an ace, probably just give up. That would be my default line here. And we just elect to check straight away, which isn't ideal because it's a reasonable board for our range. I mean, yeah, it's not the worst board for his range too. He's going to have a lot of cards that connect with the 8-9. But I mean, overall, we should have a range advantage here. He doesn't really have aces, kings, ace, king, anything like that. We have all of those hands. So yeah, well, the 8 and the 9 helps him a lot more. The fact that we can have a lot of like nutted stuff here gives us an advantage, and I think we should definitely have bet. I think the problem with betting him, this guy snap folds up, he had nothing. But when we're betting here, is like, what are we representing? What story we're telling? 3-bet pre, check flop, then just start betting 4-turn. Not sure what story we're telling there. It's quite an inconsistent story. And again, maybe it works in games where players are like playing pretty tight and autopiloting and not thinking too much about how our opponent's ranges look. But in general, again, for me, 3-betting pre, checking his flop, then betting like a complete brick turn, I think it makes you very vulnerable to being outplayed a lot by decent, creative, thinking post-flop players. And maybe those don't exist too much in these games, but if you plan on moving up at some point, these guys will definitely start to exist. So we need to start taking lines that make sense and not doing too many things like this, which doesn't really make sense from a post-flop point of view. Pre-flop, fine, we put the 3-bet in. Nothing much to say about that other than our sizing was too small. But post-flop, our story, I don't know what story we're trying to tell here. And if we tell inconsistent stories post-flop too often in tougher games, we're going to get found out pretty quickly. First limp of the session, we should definitely isolate here. 40's fine. We get called and we get a pretty damn good flop. We should be c-betting this board with an incredibly high frequency in general because it's very dry and we should expect to get a decent amount of folds. But given we have like decent equity too, I think we can get away with the c-bet here all the time. I'd be looking to make it around 50, 55, something like that. Hope not to get raised. If we do, I guess it's just, well, whatever. Let's go. But hopefully he just folds or he calls and we improve on the turn. He leads out. Interesting. I think we can make a case for just calling here, but I much prefer raising. He might well be like making some kind of shitty feeler bet with an underpair here, with just nothing, with just like two overs that are better than ours. I think we're going to get a decent chunk of folds versus this bet, and the types of hands that he is going to be like betting and not folding, lots of them, Queen 10 suits going to have like a lot of equity again. It's going to be a lot of stuff like pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket nines. So we're going to have two overcards and a flush draw against a lot of his range here that wants to bet and get it in. And we're going to get a lot of folds too. So I would just go with a raise here and not worry too much about it. We did just elect a call though. Now we have added a gut shot. And when this player donks flop, checks turn, looks a lot like he's either got like a relatively weak made hand that he was like betting the flop for protection with, and now just wants to like, now he's getting scared with and just wants to try and show it down. And then he's gonna have some like traps where he's donk flop and going for the turn check raise, with his like super nutted stuff like his 8x and what have you. I think there's no reason to do anything other than bet here, and if he decides to go with his hand, then we've been caught with our hand in the cookie jar, but hopefully we have some outs. So I'd go with a bet here. I'll go pretty big too. I mean, I'm wanting to try and get folds here from like pocket sevens through pocket threes, things like that. Don't expect pocket nines to fold very often whatsoever, or like, anything better than pocket nines. But yeah, I'd go pretty big here. I'd go like 170. If he called and we brick the river, I'll probably just give up, which seems shit, but he doesn't have the stack to like triple him off. I'm going to make a bet here, target pocket fives, pocket sixes, pocket sevens, hope to make them fold. If not, hope to suck out on them, and then just give up trying to make them fold on rivers. It's not much of a plan, but it seems okay given his stack size. If we had a deeper stack, if we had like 85 blinds left, it's a spot where I would just go big and then just overbet shove the river. But that isn't going to work in somebody with this stack size. So, yeah, I would go with a pretty big bet here, try and maximise my fold equity. And if we didn't get the folds, then just give up on rivers. I mean, now we even counterfeit a lot of those hands. We don't need to bet. King Deuce. What on earth did I just witness there? My eyes are bleeding. King Deuce. Donk, flop, check, call, turn. Fucking hell. I mean, these people exist. These people walk among us. Not many of them in these games, but they do walk among us. This hand looks like it's going to be a relatively small pot, so we're not going to go back and look at it. Hopefully the ace queen will give us something to talk about. So we have six signs. So I don't know anything about this dude. He's short stacked, maybe tight, but who knows. His stack size makes life awkward here because it's a hand that I want to be 3-betting with a very high frequency. But excuse me a moment. Just need to clear my throat. But if we 3-bet here and get like 4-bets shipped on, do we want to get 35 blinds in pre versus a relatively tight range with ace queen? Probably not. 3-bet folding feels like vomit. I think I'll go with 3-bet and probably just say fuck it and go with it, because I'm not sure. But again, Shaun, the sizing, it's a big issue, mate. You need to work on it. This should be up to like 80, 85, something like that. I mean, I guess your sizing's giving yourself a chance to get away there on the cheap, but it's the second time we've 3-bet versus under the gun using a small sizing and folded to a 4-bet, which isn't something you really want to get in the habit of. And we also had the situation with the pocket tens area where we where we four bet them versus the three bet. It does feel like you are, well, I'm gonna just call it how I see it. It looks like you're like making information raises pre-flop, um, rather than trying to have a much more positive purpose to the raise. Maybe I'm wrong, but it does feel at the moment like that your three bet and four betting strategy pre-flop is designed mostly for information. Like you're raising for information rather than anything else. Which, it's when we raise, we do get information. So getting information from raising is good, especially if we use it well. But it shouldn't be the prime purpose of our raise. It feels like maybe that's what you're doing, or if that isn't what you're doing, like consciously, it's kind of the outcome. That's the outcome of of the actions that you're taking. So on table 2, we open King 10 suited, which is obviously completely standard. We get a very low dry flop, and I think the C bet's completely standard too. I would have gone slightly smaller, but doesn't matter that much, to be fair. I'm thinking ahead. If he raises, obviously we have a really easy fold. If he calls, we only really want to be barreling on cards that improve us, so that would be like a spade or a king or a 10. Maybe we barrel on the ace and a queen too, because that would represent like a significant scare card to anyone who's in here with kind of medium pocket pairs or just a little piece of this board. So yeah, I'd be looking to fire a c-bet here and only continuing on turns that are like king, 10, spade, ace, queen. Maybe a jack, but probably not. I'll be giving up completely on this 9. Shaun continues firing and gets the job done. So here we have a king and a queen. Shaun's elected to raise, which is obviously completely standard. And we get 3 bet to 9 big blinds to someone we have no information on other than he is not playing a full stack. King Queen offsuit is not going to play particularly well in this situation, in my opinion. Against an unknown who isn't reloading, it's going to do quite a bit better than it would against a regular in this situation. Against an unknown, I think I like to just fold and move on. If I'm not going to fold and move on, I'm more likely to call, I think, versus someone who isn't reloading than I am to want to take it and like 4-bet bluff with it. I'd want to know a bit more about my opponent before I started like just 4-bet bluffing all over the shop. So I think personally I would fold here, with calling as a default second best option. I think 4-bet bluffing versus an unknown who isn't reloading probably isn't too wise. We do call, we flop a good shot. Our opponent instantly checks. So what does this say for his range? Well, it doesn't say too much at the moment. He is probably going to check if he has aces full, as you would imagine. Ace King probably bets, Ace Queen probably bets. So I think we can rule out like Ace King, Ace Queen with a decent frequency, and on top of that we block them. Do we need to bet here? I'm not sure we do just yet. I think if we check a second time and we don't improve, we can maybe think of like betting twice to try and get folds from pocket jack, stuff like that. I think I'd probably check back here personally and then look to try and take my opponent off the hand if he continued checking on the later streets. That would be my default position here. Or we could just turn, maybe not the nuts, but the effective nuts. And proceed from there. So our opponent now leads out for 58 8, which is a very small bet into this pot. What do I like here? I think I like raising. I think I like raising to something like 220, something like that. It's going to suck if we get jammed on, because there's a very good chance we're just going to run into the nuts. But I don't want to just call here, say another jack come, another 10 come, another ace come, spade come, and that might kill our action. So I think I like raising here, and if he's got the cure for our straight, then it's part of the medicine you have to take when you defend king queen versus a 3-bet pre. We do just elect to call though. Our opponent checks. So at this point we know our straight's the best hand. It's just what are we trying to get value from? What sizes do we make it? Obviously, like we hope. I mean, there's a lot of card removal going on here, which means you can't have too many ace jacks, ace kings, ace queens. But that's the kind of range we need to be targeting here with this bet. I don't think we're going to get many. If he does have like pocket kings or pocket queens, we're not going to get a lot of action from them. So I wouldn't be sizing up to try and get calls from them. So I'll probably go quite big here and just hope he decided not to fold a big ace. So I'd probably be looking to go up at around 230 plus. Really, really sucks if we get jammed on. But that's what I'd be doing. We're going for a large bet here, targeting ace jack through ace king. Or maybe we get really lucky and he's somehow got a 10. And we did get the call, which was nice. At last, a real hand. 2 kings. See what size Shaun makes it here. Typically, he's been doing like 60. Yeah, well, not 60. We haven't faced a 3x yet, I don't think. But he's been going 25 to 55. I hope Shaun doesn't just go to like 70 something here. But in a way, I also hope he doesn't go up to like $1 or more. Because then if he goes to like 60 or 70, at least he's being consistent with his sizing. It's too small, but at least Shaun appreciates he needs to be consistent with his sizing and not be giving his hand strength away with different sizes pre. So yeah, ideally, obviously Shaun needs to be going to like 120 here, something like that, 110, 120, even 130. And maybe given we're deeper, you could even go up to like 140-ish. But then that would demonstrate Shaun definitely has a pre-flop sizing tell. But if he goes to 70, then clearly it's way too small given how strong our hand is and how deep we are. Here's again chose to go with a relatively small 3-bet sizing, which is expected. We get the call, and we get a really good flop. I think there's nothing else to say here other than just bet, hope they call, bet, hope they call, bet, hope they call, I guess. The sizing's the only issue. I'd be looking to, because given it's a kind of a flop that should be favourable to his range, not in a way that gets it past us, it improves him past us, but you should have a lot of hands that are going to be able to continue on this board. So I'd be going with a pretty big size in here, like 120 or more, and just hoping he's somewhere in this region, but not so well into the region that he's overtaken us. And we go with a check. I really don't like the check here. It allows him to check back all this stuff like pocket nines, pocket sevens, pocket jacks, 10x. Yeah, we need to be getting some value here, Shaun, and we also need to be building a pot and like charging our opponent if he does have like some equity that wouldn't be folding. And we just bet the turn and take it down, so no harm done. But yeah, you do seem to be all over the map with your strategies, Shaun. I'm struggling to notice like a very obvious strategy that you have yet. It's difficult to see like what your overall approach to the game is. I guess now's a good point just to, and I hope Shaun doesn't think I'm being too harsh here, but Shaun for me seems to be a classic example of a lot of the regulars that I see playing today. And please don't take offence to this, Shaun, because I'm not trying to upset you or say anything rude. But as someone who's like learned pre-flop ranges quite well, so they on the face of it they look like decent players because they've got decent pre-flop starts, decent aggressive three betting, like relatively loose aggressive statistics. But then post-flop or even pre-flop with the sizings, they just tend to like look like they just kind of like dissipate. They fall apart, and I really don't mean any offence here, Shaun, but there's like loads and loads of players out there at the moment, just like this, who just like Shaun, who they've like taken the time to learn pre-flop because pre-flop's relatively easy to learn, um, and then just taking the game and not really giving that much consideration to post-flop or pre-flop once it goes bet three bet or they're going to three bet somebody. It's like they've learned the first part of the game and then hoping that that's enough to like get them through the rest of the game, and it just isn't. I'm afraid pre-flop is an important part of the game, but it's quite a small part of the game when we're playing no limit cash games like 100 plus big blinds deep. Pre-flop's like way more important in tournaments where a lot of your decisions are going to be pre-flop decisions. It's super important. Then a post-flop matters a little bit less, I guess. But my no limit hold'em 100 plus blinds deep is supposed to be a post-flop game, and I think that the vast majority of microstakes regulars haven't done anywhere near enough work on their game after like committing range charts to memories, and it's an area where I think all of us can always be continuing and striving to improve. And it's definitely an area where I think you can definitely do a lot more work, Shaun. And it's just not that it's not super difficult to do. It's it's a lot more interesting than learning post flop, and a lot of it's just like getting involved, start talking poker with friends more, start contributing more to discussions in various groups, etc. There's loads and loads of good free content out on YouTube. I cannot stand Doug Polk as a human being because I think he's like a whiny, attention-seeking little like typical millennial drama queen type. Completely bores my piss, but at the same time, he has produced some like excellent strategy content for like players just like Shaun who have like kind of they know what they're doing pre-flop to an extent, but after that, there's not much behind. Um, and yeah, get out there and like look at a lot of the free content that's out there. There's loads of stuff. No Limit Gaming has some excellent YouTube content. Stefan Sontimer, I think that's what it's called. Goose, and a few others. There's loads and loads of excellent free content on YouTube right now. You don't have to pay an awful lot to get some really excellent advice on your game. That will get you in a position where you are very competitive in these games, if not beating them for like a pretty decent lick quite quickly. If you're willing to put the time in to watch the videos and fairly appraise yourself and make a plan for like, right, these are things I'm doing wrong. Let's prioritize what's the most important, work on that. Don't try and do too much at once because you'll just end up being a complete mess. But prioritizing your biggest problems, fixing them up, and then just always working on the back end of your game. Yeah. So to be honest, Shaun, I think outside of your pre-flop ranges, there's a lot to work on, but that shouldn't mean that you should lose any heart. I'm aware that we're not yet halfway through Shaun's video and we've already gone 44 minutes. So what we might do in a moment is just like pause the recording, and then only review the hands. I'll watch the rest of the video, but perhaps we won't watch the rest of the video live in this, and we'll just get through to the interesting stuff, because Shaun's taken the time to make a 31-minute video, and I think it's only right that I review it all. But if we do, at the current pace, the video is going to be going for 90 minutes, which not many people are going to sit and watch a 90-minute video. Interesting why Shaun's decided to consciously raise pot here rather than raise 25, which has been his usual sizing. So here we've been 3-bet by someone who looks kind of weak tight-ish, 21-13. He's 3-bet middle position versus under the gun. I think pocket 8 is just going to be a fold here versus the 25-13 who isn't playing a full stack. These players, like, these are the fish in these games these days, because there aren't any like genuine fish. So these 25-13 types, these 22-8s, these 26-11s, these are the fish. The tight fish, the slowly bleeding money rather than like constantly throwing parties and donating. But these are the fish, and these are the guys that we're going to like make all of our money from, and these are the guys who want to avoid making the biggest mistakes against by treating them like proper aggressive regulars. His range here for 3-betting, assuming that 25-39 is a ridiculous sample size, but assuming 21-13 is somewhere like where he is in his stats long term, then we just want to be folding pocket 8s versus someone with that kind of gap between their VPIP and PFR who doesn't reload pre-flop, because they're going to be way more weighted towards strong hands here that have pocket 8s in all kinds of trouble. I think this is like a really easy fold, but I guess it's a fold lots of people aren't making. It looks like Shaun's going to make it, but I think it's a spot where lots of people don't fold, and then they get themselves in all kinds of messes post-flop versus relatively tight ranges and bad players. Interesting, we didn't open the 10-9 suited under the gun there, and I imagine that's a pretty mandatory open for most players. But we'll just watch the video all the way through to the end, but we'll try not to stop at too many points that aren't of like massive interest. I will try and talk through them as the hand's going. And why have we donked here? That's interesting. We're going to have to pause. Not sure why we've donked here, Shaun. We've got a hand that's like pretty perfect for check calling. Yeah. I mean, we don't know enough about this player to know he's a fish or not. We don't know. This guy looks like he's kind of trying to be a loose aggressive regular pre-flop, but then he's got like pretty crap aggression post-flop. Yeah, I mean, this should just be a bog standard check with the plan to call, probably 2 streets and decide on the river. By leading out, we fold out a lot of the hands that we wouldn't mind c-betting. On this like 7-7-3 board, it's relatively dry. Yeah, it's the flush draw and there's a few gut shots out there, but it's relatively dry. It's a board that you'd imagine people are going to c-bet their air with a pretty high frequency. And pocket 9s is a perfect hand to use to, well, not perfect, but it's a good hand to use to defend versus those types of ranges. When we lead out, we take a lot of their air from their range. It's just going to fold rather than bet. Yeah, and again, it just goes back to what we talked about earlier, where people playing relatively well pre-flop in terms of their numbers that they're producing, like 21-19 or whatever, but post-flop, the game, the quality of their play significantly drops, and this is, again, sadly, Shaun, another example of that. Continuing to bet here when the flush comes in. I don't know what the purpose of this bet's going to be, Shaun. Are we wanting to get calls? If so, from what? We're massively over-repping our hand at this point. Yeah, I'm not sure why we're going to be betting this turn, but we do get called, and then at this point we just have a hand that's just a check. Hope it goes check versus pocket 6s, pocket 8s. Yeah, this pot's too big, basically, Shaun. There's 34 blinds in this pot. We have two nines. We're out of position on a river that it's going to be really, really hard to bet and get value on, and it's going to be quite hard to check and be able to bluff catch effectively, given that we've taken a line that should fold out a lot of these weaker stuff. And then we just lose to pocket tens there. We probably would have lost a similar size pot versus pocket tens anyway, but the manner in which we did it manipulated our opponent's range to where he only has better hands usually and doesn't have too many worse hands, which is not a situation you want to continue creating for yourself. And there's that really poor pre-flop 3-bet sizing again from Shaun. And again we faced a 4-bet. And what are we going to do this time? We folded. Yeah, so anything we've already touched on during the video like that, we're kind of going to brush over for the rest of the video because we've already made the point. I'll highlight it, but we're not going to continue to make the same points over and over. Let's see a 3-bet size here, up to much bigger than that, but again, we've discussed it before, and very similar to the pocket kings hand earlier. Shaun likes to bet this time. We get raised, interesting. There's just not many hands our opponent can have here that are beating us at this point. It's a 3-bet pot. He shouldn't have maybe he's shit and he has pocket twos or pocket threes sometimes. Not sure why they would want to raise anyway. Maybe he has hands like aces and kings. If he has them, it's just a cooler. Nothing much we can do. The question is just how do we proceed from here? Do we call and then just allow him to barrel off, or do we call, check raise turn, or would you just get it in now and hope he's bad enough to just overrate a hand like pocket tens here, pocket jacks, something like that? I think I prefer here. What do I prefer here? Instinctively, I feel like calling and then just check shipping any turn. Because I don't think he has too much ace X or king X. If an ace or a king does come on the turn here, I'm not going to be that worried about it, to be honest with you. I'm just going to, whatever, it is what it is. It's not going to prevent me from, staying in the pot. So I think I like just checking, calling here, checking turn with a view to just, ripping it in versus the bet. Rather than just ripping it in now or raising now, which again, I think maybe folds out some of his bluffs, but folds out all of his bluffs apart from his really high equity ones, and maybe even folds out hands like pocket eights, nines, tens here. Yeah, I mean, if we are against someone who just isn't going to fold pocket tens here, pocket nines, then obviously this plays great, but we can't know that. I think I much prefer calling here, keeping my opponent's range a little bit wider with both his value hands and his bluffs, and then just committing on the turn. Yeah, we do get the fold there, which we don't want. We don't want him to fold there when we have two queens. Don't mind the 3-bet fold with the ace-9 suited there at all. I think we're calling our 3-bet foldings both fine. Again, we had the same sizing issue we discussed through the entire video. We're not going to continue beating that drum. Right, here's where things really get sticky. When we're making these mega small sizings with hands like ace jack, and I don't want to keep banging the drum, but I mean we've got a relatively good flop here, I suppose. 2 overs, flush draw, some of the backdoor stuff. But yeah, let's not be doing it, Shaun. Let's just not be doing it. Oh, we just called in the end. Sorry, I thought we 3-bet. My mistake. Interesting river sport, 'cause we should bet and then fold to a raise. See what Shaun does. He just bets and takes it down. We go with the 3-bet here. I'm not sure that I love it against someone who was playing 22-14, but we didn't, so all good. Right, we have a blue tag on this dude. Not sure what that means. No idea what it means. Just not sure. So here we have the king 10 and the queen 9. Possibly some action. Not yet. Now this for me is a decent 3-bet situation. Queen 9 suited. We've got a relatively loose, aggressive looking player opening from the cutoff. These are the types I'd much rather 3-bet a hand like Queen 9 suited here than the types of hand Shaun's been 3-betting, like your King, your Jack Queens and things like that. That have that bit more playability and high card strength. I think this makes a nice 3-bet fold here. Hate to see us call. I think we need to play this hand. It's too strong to fold on the button. For sure versus a cut-off open, but I don't like to just call. I think we should definitely be 3-betting here. And again, up to like $1, $1.05. But a bit deeper, maybe even $1.10. Shaun just calls, which I don't like. I mean, in these games, it's a bit more aggressive, squeezing from the blinds, etc. I prefer to just 3-bet, knock the blinds out, try and play a pot. As played, we're now heads up. We've got kind of marginal situation developing. Whereas we've got top pair, so we're going to need to stay in this pot for at least one street. But the bigger this pot gets, the worse our hand becomes. No, please don't raise, Shaun. No. And again, this is kind of confirming to me now that Shaun, the purpose for Shaun's raising is much more to do with finding out where he's at than it is actually serving some purpose in terms of getting value from his opponents or gathering fold equity versus his opponents. There's just no reason to raise here, Shaun. He's going to continue with all the hands that are doing fine against us and fold all the hands that are doing pretty shit against us, and maybe even bluff with some hands that are doing shit against us, and we're not going to be able to continue. This should just be a call, but the problem starts pre-flop. It's not a good call pre-flop. We should be 3-betting or folding pre-flop, and now we're deciding to get aggressive with a marginal made hand post-flop. It's just kind of messy, bud. Yeah, awful turn. Looks like we're not giving up. And now we just have to fold, of course. And again, that's just another example of Shaun building a pot with a hand and building a pot that's too big for our actual hand strength. So we made a kind of marginal defend here in the big blind, small blind with King Jack. Not sure I like the defend, but we made it. I think we should just keep checking here, Shaun. And we have a decent hand, decent draw. We can pretty much call all bets on the turn. Now we've been raised, we're in a situation where we're going to have to fold a shit ton of equity, whereas we could just have check called here and guarantee to at least realise all of our equity and have our opponents hopefully having some weaker hands in their range to bet with, rather than now when we bet and we get raised, he's pretty much only going to have really strong hands in his range, you would imagine. So you you're blowing yourself off your equity quite a lot, Shaun, with your like willingness to be aggressive in situations where our hand is going to play much better in a passive way. Interesting spot coming up. Anal Smasher. Shouldn't laugh. Anal Smasher 2. It's a fun name. So we've been 3-betting by someone who looks like they're playing quite tight, albeit over a ridiculously small sample. But we are starting a little bit deeper. It'll be interesting to see how Shaun continues here. I'm torn between all three options. I think I like calling the least. I think I like folding the best. And I kind of like using this as like the top of my folding range to like 4-bet as a bluff with. Maybe here we 4-bet and we get to fold out ace queen sometimes, for example. Maybe we get to fold out things like pocket 9, stuff like that. So I think my default would be probably just about fold here versus a tight player or someone who we think might be tight. But if I'm not going to fold it, I'm going to rather continue 4-betting as a bluff than I am by calling. Now that this player's come along, I think a call becomes slightly more attractive. We're getting a pretty good price now. So I think call now comes into play over 4-betting. I think call just about wins this for me now. Feels like call's polling around 50%. Folding's up at like 35% and 15% 4-bet, something like that. Just pulling the numbers out of my ass. We do call, we completely miss it. We just check fold, of course. Again, we're choosing a 3-bet, a relatively marginal hand to a poor sizing. Again, we get 4-bet. Wow, you get 4-bet a lot, Shaun. Probably because of the sizings that you're choosing. That's probably got quite a lot to do with it, I would imagine. So we like to defend the ace queen here versus the button 3-bet. I think it's completely fine. A relatively easy check call here. Hope Shaun doesn't go for a check raise. Bad turn card. Probably need to call again though, and just do we lead river or do we? Let's just go back there because I didn't hit the pause button in time. Oh heck, what's happened here then? We're back. We didn't get to see it, but yeah, I'm not going to rewind it again because it's likely just to mess up again. I think on the river there, when he checks back the turn on the king, we're in a decision where we decide whether to go for some thinnish value with the bet or just check again. Shaun, I think, went with the bet and got the snap fold. Trying not to be result orientated, but I think I prefer checking again there, giving our opponent one last chance to bluff. It's really difficult to expect he's going to be a call with the worst hand too often there, unless he just wants to hero call, putting us on missed draws. So yeah, I think again I prefer a check there. But a lot of my strategies are based on trying to keep my opponent's ranges as wide as possible and have a relatively strong calling ranges. Not sure that's as good in these games as it is in some of the games I play on Sky against like aggressive fish. But yeah, I personally would have gone for another check there with a view to probably not folding unless I faced a real polarising bet size. I shouldn't say polarising bet size, a large bet size, which should probably lead me towards folding. Not polarising, because we probably should call if we think they are actually polarised. We have a reasonable check raise candidate here with the King Queen against somebody who looks like they might be on the aggressive side. 28-28, small sample size, although they haven't got any aggression factor yet post flop. I think that hands like this kind of hits our range pretty well, like the 6 and the 7. We have like 2 overcards, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. So I think these are situations where I quite like to go for a raise versus a small c-bet sizing. And then if we get called, only continuing on good turns for us, those being clubs, tens, kings and queens, and giving up on others. And if we raise and we get 3-bet, we just have a trivial fold. So I think Shaun's probably gonna call or fold here, but I think I actually like a check raise here on this particular board texture. And close to the end of the video, about a minute left. And we're going to get one last interesting spot. We set man with the 3s. We miss, and I guess we just check fold. Still check folding. Oh well, we're in position. Totally misread that hand. Useless fucker that I am. Given there's not long left in the video, I'm presuming none of these hands turn out to be long and interesting ones. But we'll see it through to the end. And there we go, that is the end. So thanks for that, Shaun. Apologies that I couldn't find too many positive things to say about your play during the video. I hope you haven't been offended by any of it, and I'm presuming you won't be. We're all grown-ups after all. And I hope you guys have got something from it, because for sure there were some of you guys out there making exactly the same, what I believe to be mistakes that Shaun made during this video. So I hope it's been of some use to you. If you'd like your video reviewing, please do contact me via one of the methods below, and I'll let you know how to get your video to me. And yeah, I'd be delighted to review it. I've got one more in the pipeline at the moment after this. It's a full ring video, which might not go down too well with some of you guys, but I'll enjoy doing it because I don't mind a bit of full ring from time to time. And yeah, Shaun, thank you very much again. I do genuinely believe, and I almost never say this, but I do genuinely believe you could probably benefit from taking a session or two with me just to help polish up some of the mistakes that we've seen you make in this video. Of course, if you choose not to, that's completely up to you. I'm not going to put any more pressure on you than that. But yeah, you'd need to get some help with your game post up, either be it from me or be it from like joining a training site or something, and devouring quite a lot of content, because there's plenty of room for improvement, I'm afraid, buddy. But you know, same can be said for all of us. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. Special thanks to Shaun for sending me the video. Take care, and bye bye for now.